I'm Lily, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Lily Kate Makes on Instagram and here on YouTube, and this is my knitting podcast where I share my designs, projects, yarn, all that kind of thing. So welcome back. I don't know what number episode I'm on, I've lost track. I think about 17, something like that. But anyway, today I have a few new summery projects to share, some new yarn colours and possibly some really old knits that I've found. So I'll just get straight on with it by sharing the top that I have finally finished. I mentioned this in my last video that it had been on the needles a while, and it was on the needles for a while after that. It's only just now finished. It doesn't have a name yet. I'll think of something. But yeah, my latest summer top is what I'm currently wearing, and the main detail is on the back where I have these raised ridges. So I wanted to make a little summery kind of little bit racer front, but not too exaggerated, with this textured pattern on the back, mainly because I love this yarn. So I've worked with Cocon yarns on this for this design. This is a merino linen fingering weight that I've used for the body, and then slubby mohair, which is actually more of a boucle than a slub, so I'm not sure about the name, but whatever. It's like a loopy mohair, which I love the combination of. And as I spoke about in my last video, I've been swatching and playing around and realised that putting that around the edge anywhere just made it look like a Christmas costume, so that was quickly ruled out. But I really wanted to use it in quite a linear graphic way rather than as a big expanse of fabric. So after a bit of swatching, I came up with the idea of using the stripes just on the surface, which I think it was a work in progress, and I showed it at this point in my last video, so I might try and find the clip from there. But basically the stripes just sit on top of the surface, and underneath on the other side of the fabric you don't really get any of the contrast yarn, which can be nice for the fact that it is a loopy mohair, and I wanted this to be a very summery knit, so it didn't really make sense to have that next to the skin. So in this way you get maximum impact without it actually being next to the skin, because I am personally quite happy to wear mohair right around my neck all year round. It does not bother me, but I know that's not the case for a lot of people, so I thought it would make more sense to have it in a non-irritating position. And also textured yarns like this, which obviously this is a loopy mohair, but I could imagine this design in like a, I don't know, an eyelash yarn or something really crazy out there, like novelty yarn, anything with a sort of unusual texture that can be quite difficult to actually knit with, as in if you've got loops on your left needle made of this textured yarn and trying to knit with your right needle with the textured yarn again, can be a bit confusing to know, is that a loop? Is that a stitch? Like, what is it? It's kind of fiddly. However, with this you create each stripe separately, and you only ever have to cast on and then knit. So it kind of does away with the having to actually cast on and then knit one row, sorry. So you don't ever have to knit more than one row at a time in this yarn. So I just thought that was a nice way to get maximum impact with minimum faff. Anyway, so yeah, I really like the upper body pattern on that. I don't think it needed to be anywhere else other than just on the upper back. I think that's enough. It might have been a bit much to try and carrying it on elsewhere on the garment, so I kept it quite minimal, with the idea that I'll just shape the neck and the armholes nicely, which thankfully I'm absolutely thrilled with how it's turned out, because my goodness was it hard work. Everything went wrong. I literally had to frog this. I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 times, but the first time the upper back was too wide, and then it wasn't too narrow after that, something else was wrong. Oh, then it was too long on the upper back and the armholes were too deep, and then I tried doing a regular slope here of just working straight and then increasing out at a regular rate. That looked a weird angle, didn't like that. And then I tried doing some short rows, like kind of filling in, having extra depth on the top of the armband and compared to the bottom. That didn't look right. then I changed the slope here, and then the armhole was still too deep, so that had to be frogged again. And then finally I've settled on this curve here, so it's kind of straight, then one rate of increase, then another rate of increase. And at the back there is no armhole shaping. It kind of has stretched out a little bit, it shows it better if I lay the garment flat, but this is just straight down and straight across there, so that is actually a mitered corner there. It should be a right angle, but obviously when you've got a body in it, it kind of all softens out, but different armhole shapes at the front and the back. That eventually turned out as I hoped, because I'm really liking this kind of high neck, slight racer, sporty front business at the minute, but I didn't want it too exaggerated, so here we are. Yet nameless, but very glad, very glad to be done, and hopefully will be just about the right time for a spring pattern. So it's not, if I stand up actually, it's not super cropped, well it's not cropped at all, just everything looks short on me because I am long, but these are like lowish waist pants and it kind of meets there, but obviously you could go there. Good cropped if you wanted to, go a bit longer if you wanted to. It's just, you know, fitted to whatever length you desire with a simple rolled hem. Oh, and if I stand a bit closer, the neckline. So I didn't use, ooh, we're a bit close here, aren't we? I didn't use any of the contrast yarn, the loopy slubby boucle thingy, around these edgings because I thought it would be a bit much. Just show you closer there. However, I did just do one round with it on the neck here. And I like how that's just ties it in a little bit, but it's very subtle, and that's just a rolled edge. So yeah, very happy with it. I've just photographed it, haven't come up with a name. We'll be sharing that on Instagram, doing a testing call, all of that business, and I would love to see this one done in all manner of different colours and all sorts. I think it would be really good scrappy stash busty, because you could use like a couple of strands of mohair or contrast sock yarn or anything, because it doesn't really matter about the gauge. Sorry, I'm going to keep spinning around to be like, there's stripes there, you know, because it looks boring from the front. Because the stripes just sit on top, it doesn't really matter too much about the gauge. It doesn't impact the rest of the item, so you could kind of just use anything. Not chunky obviously, but lace or 4-ply or DK, or go to town on the novelty fluffy eyelash tinsel, who knows what. I'd love to see it in lame actually, if anyone wants to use one of those little Rikarumi lame, gold or silver, someone do that please. Yeah, just party in the back, simple at the front, that's the vibe. Yeah, shall be doing a testing call very soon, and hopefully we'll be able to see some different versions too. So thank you very much to Cocon Yarn for sending me the yarn for this. It's the merino linen fingering weight, as I mentioned. I've knit it to more like a sport weight gauge though, so it's not like a tiny needles knit. In the shade Licorice for the body, and then the Slubby Mohair, which does come in the same shade, so you could do it matching in just texture if you wanted to. I used the natural for those stripes, which they come in mini skeins. So I haven't actually weighed it all to double check, but I think you could get all of the stripes out of a mini skein. Don't quote me on that yet until I've verified, but that was the idea. You didn't have to use much yarn. So yeah, that's my FO. Finished a couple of days ago, and I also have a couple of whips on the needles. So I'm currently running a knit along for the one that I want crop, which I finished last year. Finished it in February last year actually. I was far more on the ball with my summer knits last year than I am this year. So the pattern's been out just over a year already, and I'm currently running a knit along for it. So if you want to join in, there is plenty of time. The knit along's through April. I kind of intended to space out like, this week we'll do this and this week we'll do this, but which is how I'm knitting it. But some people have kind of raced ahead and finished it in a few days anyway, so if you want to join in, by all means do. There will be prizes for people who post photos, join in the knit along, you know. So it's been really nice to have the Facebook group and Instagram chats with people who have been knitting it so far. And I chose this pattern for a spring cal, mainly because there's so much scope to do different things with it really. Like, I made my first version, I'll pop some photos here, fairly simple, just one solid colour with a scalloped edging and a contrast, but so many people have added things like crisscross back or a lace up back or stripes or different edgings, change the straps, zip backs, all manner of different things. There's so much scope to have fun with it and modify it, so I thought that would make it ideal for a knit along really. So she says, having then done a fairly boring version myself, but some people have done some really lovely versions, so it makes me very happy to see. So yeah, this is my other project on the needles right now. My whip, that's what I was thinking of. Forgot the phrase. So the one that I want crop, this time I'm making it slightly longer than my original, just because I want this to be able to sort of tuck into pants a little more. I was going for a bit more streamlined, minimal kind of look this time. So I'm just using the same yarn again, which is Stitch and Story Secret Garden DK, which is a cotton acrylic blend, 60/40 cotton I think. Something like that anyway. I haven't checked the specs in a while, but it makes for a really nice dense bouncy fabric, which for this pattern the denser the better. Obviously there's a lot of variation within yarns that have DK on the label, some will be much finer than others, but for this one the denser the better. A really robust bouncy DK is far more suited to this kind of pattern with lots of negative ease than a lighter weight DK, which will actually counterintuitively give you a bigger garment because the stitches have got more room to slip and slide against each other. So anyway, I've explained all that in the pattern. I don't need to waffle about that too long. So what I'm doing this time is, instead of just using one solid colour, I have inserted just ridges of a contrast colour in between the short rows. So all the short rows are explained in the pattern, it's broken down into sections. I think it's A to O. So as you go around the body, you're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, all the way around, all broken down, all explained. There's a diagram. Sounds complicated, but I promise to actually knit. The skills involved are fairly minimal really, so I know a couple of people that have knit this as their first garment. Beginner friendly, just putting that out there. But yeah, I'm just using a contrast yarn on the ridge in between the short rows, and I think I'm really happy with how it's looking so far. So giving that kind of corset look, which is what I was going for. And I'm going to, I think, omit the scalloped edging and just do a really plain crisp edging. I'm liking the minimal kind of thing at the minute, so no scallops, not feeling that this time around. The edging is done in crochet, which if anyone is nervous to try crochet, I would actually recommend starting with crocheting into a knitted fabric is far easier than just crocheting from scratch, because it's very clear where you need to go, particularly with garter stitch. You just put your crochet hook in between each ridge, whereas I always find the tricky part with crochet is not knowing, do I put my hook into that bump or into that V or under around there, or is it twisted? It can be quite open to interpretation with crochet, whereas going into a knitted fabric is much simpler. So would recommend starting there actually. And anyway, I'm going off on a tangent now, but the other thing that I'm doing slightly differently this time is, so I normally make the size 2 in my patterns for myself, which is a 32 to 34 inch bust, and I'm about like a 33.5, 34, so I'm like at the top of that range. But on this occasion I am actually making the size 1 and modifying it slightly. So the whole thing with this pattern and working around the body, working sideways, don't mind my shoulder cracking there, is the fact that you can try it on as you go and adapt. So at this point here, I'm supposedly at the halfway point if I was making a size 1. However, I'm going to add a bit extra in here because, as you can see, I'm not halfway. Dolly is set to my measurements with her little adjusty doodahs there, very handy. And yeah, you can just add extra in to the centre or take it out depending on how it's fitting on you. Kind of do need an extra pair of hands when you're trying it on yourself, otherwise going like this it distorts. So I had my mum help me out there, and obviously I've got Dolly, but the main reason that I'm sized down to a 1 this time is because last time these straps kind of sit right above the this was supposed to run right down the sort of princess seam line along apex to apex, as we has established is the correct term, but sort of right over the nip in layman's terms. However, on this occasion I kind of like the idea of, instead of the straps coming here, them being more like here. Just, I like that line of the really wide straps, so I thought by making the size 1, this section, there are fewer rows in between each batch of short rows there, so this section here of just straight garter stitch didn't have as many rows in it for the size 1, so I followed that all the way around to here, and now I'm going to make up for those rows that I've taken out by putting them in here. So everything's kind of shuffled around and back, just because I wanted a different neckline there. So the overall fit shouldn't change other than where the straps are positioned. So I'm yet undecided whether this strap, obviously it's difficult to tell on Dolly because she doesn't have arms, whether I'm just going to do regular strap placement there and line up this stripe with, obviously I made them a bit long because I wanted to have options, and it doesn't matter if they're long because you can just sew it tucked inside there and it's fine. So I might do it there so that that stripe flows down there, which yeah, I think I am leaning towards that actually. I think that looks quite nice, having the white stripe flow up and over and down there. Yeah, I'm quite liking that idea. Or potentially I could, if there's enough give, go there and crisscross them. Or maybe even just go to the centre. No, I'm looking at it in the viewfinder and thinking, I don't know. Sometimes I have to look at things in the mirror or in a viewfinder and it looks very different to just looking at it in real life. I always look at Dolly in the mirror. It's a bit strange, but yeah, let me know which you think I should do. I might leave it until I've tried it on, pin them in place and see if the straps stay on if I put them there, because I really don't want them to fall off, so that might make the decision for me. And also actually, while I'm here, you can see it's a little bit open at the back. I might do a lace up back, possibly, because the original had buttons, and obviously here it looks like I'm too wide to have buttons because it's obviously I sized down, but I know this fabric will give a bit, so I mean it could stretch a lot more than it currently is doing. This is just me looking in the camera and trying to make up the decisions as I go along. It's quite nice actually to be knitting a third version of something and just kind of mess around with the pattern without writing it up from scratch. So yeah, that's where we're at. If you want to join the knit along, please do. Please come and share comments, progress, questions, all of that. Join my Facebook group, which is linked below. I just did it in a Facebook group because it seemed like the easiest place. Obviously Instagram's just completely open. So I thought it'd be nice to have some sort of community that was a bit more closed, but anyone can join. I'll just let you in. So yeah, please come and join in. Plenty of time to still knit one. I did deliberate over whether to do it in navy, and I would love that. However, I've got another navy project, which I shall show you next. Neat segue there. So the next project, and the reason I didn't want to do this in navy, is because I have this on the go in navy, which I think, yes, it was started in my last video but hadn't made very much progress on. It was originally going to be my mum's project. She was going to do the majority of the knitting and has done so far. I've done all the edgings so far and a few of the fiddly bits. However, it started staining her hands blue. So I'm going to take over now and see if the same happens to me. That's slightly concerning. Obviously I have now just made a navy, well she's made, whatever, we've made a navy top with white edging that has started rubbing off dye onto hands, so blocking is going to be stressful. I think it's just going to have a very quick dunk in some cold water because it does need blocking to sort of open out, but yeah, so anyway, you can see it taking shape. So this work doesn't particularly have a front or a back. It's top down, little keyhole neckline with I-cord edgings. Absolutely love how it's turned out. I think I will wear it loads. I love how this yarn is knitting up actually. It's Qing Ching, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, so apologies. Merino singles in this kind of tie-dyed effect. I think it's called like Night or Starry Night or something like that. on my watch. Nice minimal kind of look. And I'm planning to wear the keyhole neck either at the front or the back. So I'll probably change my mind each time I wear it. One side is just plain. I like it both ways, and for the pattern I will be adding optional bust darts, for whoever wishes to make them. So if you did make the bust darts, obviously you would have to make a decision as to which was going to be the front or the back, for which side you put the bust darts on, but if you're going without them, you don't need to decide. So currently on the needles, will hopefully be finished fairly soon. I'm going to take over now. I've changed it from wooden needles that may have not been helping matters with the added friction and all of that, to metal needles. Ooh, just in a stitch has fallen off there. Just fix that. I might sit and knit now actually. We'll see. See if my hands are blue in 5 minutes. I don't think they will be, because I have done some chunks of the knitting on this and been absolutely fine, so we shall see. But yeah, looking forward to wearing it, and I'm planning to do a version with, I also have this yarn, so that's the one that's used in the edging in this version, and I want to do an inverted version. Hoping that the colour doesn't run, because I might wait until I finish this one to decide whether to do that second version actually, because if this runs then I don't want a white version with bleeding edges. That will look horrific. So we shall see. But yeah, really enjoying how the design is shaping up. I think it'll be a nice wearable summer kind of knit. Again, the high neck and the shoulder kind of line, I love that look. I think it's just adds a bit of something whilst keeping a very classic minimal style. So hopefully I'll have another summer top pattern to share there. So that's 3 bluey, kind of bluey grey summer sleeveless tops on the needles, or just finished. So I think I'm doing alright on the summer knits front there. So I finally caught up a little bit. Like I said, last year I was way more on the ball and had far more done at this point, but oh well. I feel like it's a constant kind of battle of, it should be slow fashion, there shouldn't be this pressure to create loads of stuff and constantly be churning out new, when the whole point of knitting is that it is slow fashion. And obviously there have been a lot of debates and conversations about this lately, particularly in relation to the whole We Are Knitters Zara Man collab debacle, which I'm not going to get into now. It's just, let's just say it's annoying. It was very foolish. Don't know why they did it. Made a lot of knitters angry. Made no sense. It's been discussed at length, and I know Sophie of the Knit Pearl Girl, I'll link her podcast below, has done a really great lengthy blog post on it, so I would definitely recommend a read there. But anyway, yeah, it's had me thinking a lot about sort of how fast fashion, or how fast should knitting be, and as a designer, obviously if you're just knitting as a hobby, then however fast you happen to get around to it, but as a designer it's kind of like, right, well, you can't expect to be able to make a living from something if you're not like constantly, you know, working on it and putting things out. No designer can just do a collection once in a blue moon whenever they fancy it. I'm talking like fashion designers here, just using it as an example, and expect their fashion house or their brand to survive. You've got to be constantly doing something. You can't just kind of sit back and let it happen. So I understand that obviously you've got to keep things turning over. However, when obviously the knitting industry is slow in essence anyway, and particularly if you're making finer gauge garments, it's not ever going to be a quick craft, then I guess you shouldn't feel too much pressure to be quick. But I have this constant debate going on of being like, Lily, you should have put out this many more designs by now, you call yourself a designer, crack on. And then thinking, actually, I've done quite a lot, I'm doing alright. So I should probably formulate my thoughts a little better and write them down and into something a bit more coherent rather than rambling. But yeah, that's just the kind of constant debate I have going on in my head. And hopefully these clicky needles aren't really annoying actually. So all that to say that I think I might do one more summer sleeveless top, and then after that, given that we're now midway through April, I think I might return to do more like t-shirts, because that's something so how many t-shirts have I done? 2 or 3. I think they're a nice one to not be overtly summery, but kind of that will work into September and maybe the earlier months as well. So that's next on the list. I have a few yarns in mind, just kind of deliberating over which to cast on with, because after this one being such a pain in the backside, nothing to do with the yarn or anything like that, absolutely loved the yarn, just my own brain not working. I want something simple. Really want something that's just going to be hassle free and not really need frogging 5 times, so just mulling over a few ideas there before I actually settle on anything. And another thing I have to talk about, I just remembered as I'm sat knitting away there thinking what else was it, is my yarn has new colours, so that is very exciting for me. Moving swiftly on from all the summery, cottony, linen-y tops to cosy wool. So Lily Kate makes Axis, my very own yarn. I've done a whole video about it. It launched last September. It is a collaboration with Fibre Spates, who I've known for a very long time, and we launched 12 colours back in September. So it's a worsted weight, 90% merino, 10% undyed Surrey alpaca, and luckily it's done really well. So lots of shops have been interested. It's sold various stores and online retailers around the world, and it's been doing well, so we decided to launch a few more colours. So as with the first range, where I chose the first 12 colours, the ball was completely in my court to choose the next 4 colours, which actually was far easier than choosing the initial 12. So kind of by process of elimination of thinking, right, I already have 4 blues, so I'm not going to do another blue, that would be silly. Already had like a bright red and a bright yellow, and I felt like it needed another zinger. I love bright pink, it really lifts loads of palettes, it goes with loads of neutrals. That was kind of that decision made. So settling on the exact bright pink that I wanted was kind of difficult, because I was umming and ahhing over how warm, how cool it needed to be, trying the colours with the existing range. I wanted it to be a proper zinger, but that would look nice on its own as well. So this shade is called Neutrino. I'm having to double check now because I planned these and chose the colour names and everything in like November, so it was a long time coming. They went out of my brain for a while. But this is shade Neutrino, which was the only troublesome shade actually that we've had so far, which the place where they're made, the factory in Peru, test the colour fastness of all the shades, and so far everything else had come back colour fast. It was absolutely fine. Surprise, surprise, the first sample of this didn't, so had to then go back to the drawing board and try and pick from like the neighbouring shades, that would hopefully be colour fast, and it's been tested that it is, but it wasn't the exact original shade, like fractions different. So we got there in the end, and I'm happy with how bright it is. So yeah, shade Neutrino. And then on to the next shade that I chose is Continuum here. It's a kind of a sagey, nice sagey green, because surprisingly, well, I don't know if it's surprising or not, the dark green, my shade Penumbra, did really well in the first batch. It was really popular, I've worn it lots, really liked it and thought, right, another green would be sensible, it would be a good idea. But as someone who doesn't really do green, and I know there are a lot of really bright apple greens that are popular at the minute, but it feels quite trendy. The kind of greens that I'm seeing on Instagram, on Pinterest, or out and about in mainstream fashion, they're very bright and appley, but I just feel like that's not gonna last for ages. And as someone who isn't that into bright green, it didn't feel like a good idea, so went for a softer, more sagey kind of subtle green. So this is shade Continuum. If you can hear what sounds like a small child running around, by the way, it's a pigeon on the roof. I have no idea how they are so loud and it sounds like an actual child, but it's a pigeon. Yeah, shade Lagrangian we have next, mainly because I wanted to add another neutral. Already had a couple of light neutrals, a light grey and a beige, so that's kind of a warm and a cool, and the only dark neutral was a dark grey, so I thought it'd be nice to have a warmer neutral. I think a lot of people use this kind of shade in colour work, you know, sort of more rustic earthy kind of palette, like how these all are together. Is, I know a lot of people really like that, and I just thought a dark neutral would be quite handy. So yeah, shade Lagrangian, sort of chestnutty brown that's not quite as dark as like the navy, and yeah, so navy is Event Horizon and Penumbra is the dark green, which both show up the undyed alpaca really. It shows up really well, the contrast, but this isn't quite as dark, so you don't see quite as much of the light halo, but it is there. And my final shade, Meridian, is a nice deep dark, my strand of my hair attached, red, mainly just because I felt like the palette was really missing a deep rich colour, and I know it's a really popular one with a lot of knitters, and I wear it myself. I've got a shirt in pretty much this exact colour, and I kept finding actually as I was styling the items last year, so when I did like the main photo shoot, styling everything, pulled all my samples out, planned all the outfits the day before, that a lot of the items that I was going to pair with the existing colours were this kind of colour, the dark red. So I've got like some really dark red boots from Soliver, I have a deep red bag and a deep red belt, a few other items like that, and a shirt that I thought, right, well, if I keep reaching for this deep red to pair with the existing colours, then maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to, when we get round to choosing more shades for the actual yarn, to add a deep red in. So that day came around and here we are. So yeah, 4 new shades of Axis by Lily Kate. I think a couple of shops have already taken them on. I'm not sure whether they'll have arrived yet, and hopefully some of the shops that currently have the existing colours of, or the first 12 colours of Axis will take this on. I'm really happy with it. I would love to cast on with this right now, and I might do some swatching with them actually, but obviously I'm now like, it's April, I need to work on summer items, so it's probably not my priority just yet. I might save that for like July, August, and I'm ready in September, but I'm definitely thinking a circumference sweater in this would be so nice, so maybe I'll cast that on. My battery's now flashing and the pigeons are trotting around the roof still, so I think I'm going to wrap up there and get back to my project, get back to doing some actual knitting. So thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye!